There we go. Good afternoon, everybody. Can anybody hear? Yeah, there we go. Continue eating your lunch quietly, I hope, because we have back with us again our instructor from yesterday, Bobbi Howe. For those of you who were not here for her session yesterday afternoon, she's a second-generation real estate professional. She has over 20 years of experience in the real estate industry. She's the 2020 Kansas City Regional Association of Realtors President and the 2019 Chair of, you're going to love this, Strategic Thinking Advisory Committee for the National Association of Realtors. I love strategic thinkers. I don't know how to do it or spell it. She has a passion for speaking on the topic of mental health for realtors and those in the real estate industry. And in her spare time, she loves running marathons and being an association junkie. Welcome, Bobbi. Thank you.
So they brought me in a stage today, so apparently I feel like I should stand on the stage. Can you, those of you in the back of the room, can you see me? We good? All right. Can you hear me okay? Awesome. So before we really get started and going today, I need some permission from you guys. And if you say no, I guess I'm just out the room and I'm going to go back to Kansas City. It's all good. I'm going to get really, really personal today. Is that okay?
Yes.
There's parts of this that may get really emotional today. Is that okay?
Yes.
Thank you. If not, who knows what's going to happen. I need you to know that the story that I'm about to share with you, and those that you were in the room yesterday, you got a little bit of the story, this is not something I'm ashamed of. This is not something I'm embarrassed of. This is not something I'm looking for sympathy or attention from. This is a true story that happened to me. I feel I have a duty, an obligation, and responsibility to share my mother's story with you all. So before I can get going into my presentation today, I need to share with you her story. I did mention I'm a second-generation realtor. My mom was born on a dairy farm in St. Joe, Missouri. She was the only girl with 3 brothers. They weren't rich by any stretch of the imagination, and this was back in the 50s and 60s. Worked really hard for the things that they had. One day when my mom was 12 years old, she was walking out to the dairy barn, and she found her father, and he had taken his life. And in that moment, everything in my mother's life changed. She was no longer the youngest child, the little girl. She became a woman in that moment because she and her mother had to help raise the other 3 boys. My mom graduated from high school a semester early. She married my dad shortly thereafter. They were told they could never have children, which obviously is a lie because I'm here before you today. They never had any other children. My mom worked through a variety of different jobs. My mom was not the smartest person in the room, but she was always the hardest working person that I ever knew. She worked as a forklift driver in a factory. She worked as a school bus driver. She used to break and train quarter horses. There was a time when she was a bodybuilder. I'll get into that here a little bit later. And then she became a bank teller. And while she was a bank teller, she made friends with this gentleman who was coming through the bank almost on a daily basis, making these very large deposits. And as she got to know him, she discovered he was a broker of a local real estate company. And he took my mom under his wing like she was a daughter of his. And he helped her save up 6 months worth of living expenses so that she could go get her real estate license and become a realtor. In the first year, my mom was Rookie of the Year. Her 3rd year in the business, she was the #1 agent in our community, and she remained the #1 agent in our community for over 15 years. She, to this day, still has the top sales volume record ever. Though this year last year it may have got broken because somebody got really close. I watched them very carefully on the numbers. My mom was your typical top producer. The one that was too busy to be involved with the association. I saw her burn the candle at both ends, day in and day out. And I swore to God this was the one thing I was never, ever going to do. Yet here I am. She was licensed when I was 8 years old. I was licensed on my 18th birthday. Back when I was 10 years old, I started writing her contracts for her because she'd put a closing on a Sunday or she'd misspell refrigerator and my smart ass would correct her every single time. And one day she goes, "If you're so smart, you write the contract." I wrote a perfect contract that day. So that's how I made my allowance going forward. I wrote my mom's contracts, I did all of her marketing, all the flyers. Back in the day, you go get a whole bunch of photos made, a 1-hour photo, and you glue them onto a piece of paper that you typed out the flyer. You know what I'm talking about, you've been there. Those of you that have not been in this long enough, you don't even know how easy you have it nowadays. My mom and I worked together for a very, very, very long time. And then there became a time where I had to separate and go do something else. You see, at this point in time in her career, alcoholism had taken over her life. And I remember very distinctly, there was one day we were showing a church to a local attorney in town, and it was about 10:30 in the morning. And from the distance between myself and Matt Ritchie, I could smell the alcohol in her breath. And I took her outside and we had a conversation, and she said, "You don't understand, Bobbi. This is how I deal with what I'm going through." I didn't want to grow up with being attached to that being my legacy. I needed to go and create my own legacy. So what I discovered was a world within the association world was something I had never, ever experienced before. Like-minded people who knew how to balance, who wanted to help each other, who wanted to come from a place of contribution, that we weren't always fighting with each other. And I found my world and my place there. Fast forward a few years later, it's actually exactly 7 years ago this past Tuesday. It was actually the Monday after the Super Bowl of that year. And I had gone to a meeting, Realtor the Salesperson meeting at our local board. I had won, we were picking out the new winner. My mom should have also been at that meeting, she wasn't. But it wasn't unlike her to not show up to the meetings, because she was a top producer. She was too busy for the association world. And when I left that meeting, I got into a car with someone else, and I got a call from my stepdad that I'll never forget. And all I said was simply, "Bobbi, your mom has taken her life." And in that instant, my life changed for forever. I had a 4-month-old little boy at the time. I was still going through postpartum. And everything changed. And I figured out, how can I stay in this industry? This is what it's given back to me. I've given so much of myself. And so I stepped back for a little while. And I became a virtual assistant for a lot of top producers across the country. Lee Brown, Maura Neal, Brian Copeland. I know you guys all know a lot of these names. They're very, very dear friends of mine. It allowed me to stay in the real estate industry and yet step back for a little while and reevaluate everything. And during that time, I received an opportunity to take over an office of 500 agents in North Kansas City. And I really questioned whether that's what I wanted to do. And as I got into evaluating this experience, I discovered it's exactly where I needed to be. It allowed me to be one-on-one with realtors and have conversations with them about how they were letting this industry eat them up and spit them out, and we don't have to do that. Too often we come to real estate conferences and we learn how to go sell more real estate, how to do this, how to do that, but we don't talk about the mental health that's involved within this industry. We do not talk about how to deal with the stresses that we have. We can have the highest of highs and the lowest of lows all in the same day, and why aren't we talking about it? So today, while you all are still finishing up your lunches, we're going to talk about how we deal with this. This is called Lessons from the Other Side. I hope that at least one of these points speaks to you on some level. I really hope more than one does. And please know that I'm always here for you. You can find me anywhere, Facebook, Twitter, wherever, and I'm here as a resource for you guys. So, very first one I need you to know, work-life balance is a misnomer. It's such a catchphrase right now. We all want work-life balance. We all want work-life balance. I need you to know that there's going to be very few times in your life when you truly have work-life balance. You're going to have times of your life that are more work-heavy, and they're going to suck. And the sooner that you just accept that and you just live with the fact that there is work life that sucks, the easier it is to just accept it and move forward. But I need you to know that you have to have the work side. We talked about that yesterday. We just can't sit back and expect business to happen to us. But the other side of that is I need you to know that you have to take time for the life side. And your business side will suffer during that time, and that's okay. Because you put in the work, you built up, you allowed yourself to have that time. You know, the purpose of business is to fund that perfect life. You get to choose what that perfect life looks like. But you have to pace yourself. Sometimes you have to hit the pause button. You know, like the Staples read the easy button? I think we all have a pause button in our life, and we need to hit it from time to time. My mom never hit the pause button. I'm going to get into a little bit later why that was. It was always work, 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 And if maybe there wasn't something going on, maybe I'll do something for my life, but for the most part, she never allowed those opportunities to ever creep into her life. I'm constantly looking for new ways to create incredible life experiences with my little boy and with my husband, to go see the world and do new things and experience new things. I was just talking to Matt about, we have the President's Circle coming up in Miami in 2.5 weeks or whatever that is now. My son doesn't want to go to that because he doesn't want to miss perfect attendance from school. He's 7 years old. I had to have a conversation with him at the end of his life. Does he want to have a little piece of paper in a folder, or does he want to go have some life experiences? I need you guys to go create those life experiences. And when you hit the pause button, almost everyone around you is going to respect and appreciate that. You will have a few people in your life who do not, and they do not deserve to be in your life. Let those people go. There are people in your world right now who do not deserve you for the person that you are, and I need you to know that it's okay to let those people go. The next point, you teach others how to treat you. What you stop, what you allow, and what you reinforce. So when you get really, really angry that someone's texting you or emailing you at 11 o'clock and you're responding at 11:02, you just reinforce to them that it's okay for them to do what they're doing. And I need you to stop it. You know, my mom, she would answer the phone if someone called her at midnight. There was very little real estate that used to happen at midnight. And yet she would always say, but if they're calling me, they must need something. It could wait till 8 a.m. the next day. She was always the first person to pack me up on Christmas Eve and take me out to go show a house. No one really needs to see a house on Christmas Eve. They might be under some work stress to find a new house over the Christmas holiday, but they don't need to buy a house on Christmas Eve. I watched my mom never really set boundaries, not set expectations with the people around her. And so therefore, I didn't really ever learn how to set boundaries and expectations. And then 2 situations happened in my life, and I realized I had to take a stand for myself and my family. And the very first one happened when I was in labor with my son. I had just gone under contract with some people for a brand new home, and they started texting me that day that they needed to get in and measure for carpet. And I was like, that's great. I'm in the hospital, I'm hooked up to some stuff, but I have someone else available who can let you into the property. And they said, no, you don't understand, Bobbi. You have to be the one to let us in. No, anybody can open a door for you. And they kept going back and fighting with me. And finally, my husband had to take away my phone and say, she'll get back to you when she has our son. Now, these people had kids. They had no reason to keep doing this. Yet I hadn't set that boundary with them that it was not okay for them to treat me this way. And I really never thought anybody could be more bold than that until the day of my mom's funeral. And I had a buyer who had to see a house that day. And I said to them, look, my mom's funeral's going on today. There's a whole bunch of stuff, but I have another agent lined up to show you properties. This is not an issue. Their response to me was, Bobbi, it's not like you're going to be at the funeral all day. And I realized I could not allow people to run over me like that anymore. I actually handed them off to someone else. I did not take a referral fee. I actually gave them to my least favorite person in the world. No, I'm just kidding. Sometimes I think we should do that. But my point being, there was something that I had done or not done along the way that made them think that it was okay for them to treat another human being that way. Those are not the kind of people I need in the world. And though I taught them how to treat me going forward, is that we just wouldn't work together. Next one, your perception creates your reality. I actually had this in the slideshow yesterday as a part of setting your goals and finding your why and what your perception is. And there's 2 parts to this. The first one is one of my favorite quotes. I'm going to say that like 7 times, you just know that. One of my favorite quotes, the I am statement. For what you say behind that creates your destiny. When someone asks you how you're doing today, how do you respond? I'm fine. I'm sick, I'm hurt. You've just guaranteed that for the rest of the day, the best you're ever going to be is fine, sick, or hurt. I love to throw people off when they ask me, how are you doing today? I answer with one of 3 A's. I'm either awesome, amazing, or alive. And I am. I've chosen that that's how I'm going to be. My favorite is alive, because that really throws people off. They're like, oh yeah, I'm here, I'm alive, I am in this moment. I choose to be here. And I am who I am. The other part of this perception creates your reality is your mindset. Do you come from a scarcity-based mindset, or do you come from an abundance-based mindset? Scarcity says there's not enough to go around for everybody. Abundance says there's more than enough and more than enough for everybody. God bless my mother's soul. She was one of the most scarcity-based people I ever knew. She was a top producer, yet every single client was going to be the very last client she ever had. She got them out of sheer luck. She had no idea how she landed their business, and therefore she would let them run her into the ground because there wasn't going to ever be anybody else behind them. My very favorite and or least favorite client we had was a husband and wife named Marcy and Jean. Now, I need you to understand that on the surface, Marcy and Jean were fine people, but at their core being, Marcy and Jean were horrible human beings. You all have those clients, you know exactly who I'm talking about, you're picturing them right now. So Marcy and Jean, over the course of about 5 years, we had gotten under contract with Marcy and Jean about 7 different times. Every single time we went under contract with Marcy and Jean, the very next morning we'd have a call from them, and they needed to get out of the contract. This was not the right property for them. They needed to move on to something else. I don't know why we wasted our time. And my mom and I would get them out of the contract, do whatever we had to do. Then I would have a conversation with my mom. Why do we continue to work for Marcy and Jean? Why don't we release them into the universe and actually get a client that actually wants to buy a house? I don't know. That's a crazy concept. And my mom would say 2 things to me every single time, and I know you've said these words before. Number 1, I've worked with them for so long that I'm owed something. I spent all this time, I need to get a paycheck. And the second thing is, I want their referrals. I'm going to talk to you a little bit about why that's a bad idea. But my mom would say that every single time. Well, unfortunately, my mom was never able to sell them a home. But guess who did? I did. It's 2 years later. Finally get them under contract to buy something, and they stuck with it for once in their lives. But as a part of that, I had to sell the current home they were living in. And I remember when we got that contract, it was on the first day we were on the market. The buyer was the daughter of the other realtor, so it was a nice, smooth, easy transaction. Everybody knew what they were doing. I take the contract over to their home, and I present it to them at the kitchen table, and I will never forget that moment for as long as I live. I went over the contract, I went over the net proceeds sheet, I showed them all the stipulations of the contract, and then they got into one of the worst fights that I have ever seen between a husband and a wife. And to this day, I don't remember what they were fighting about, but they just got into a horrible fight about nothing to do with the contract. And it actually got to the point that I actually almost called 911 because I was pretty confident the wife was going to beat the husband to the point of being hurt. And it was a scary, scary moment. And I remember just thinking, please God, let me get out of this house and get these people out of my life for once and all. We moved through the process, and we're about 2 weeks out from closing. And I get a call from Marcy and Jean. And it's from both of them together because you could never have one on the phone without the other. They're conference calling throughout the house. And they're like, what's this $2,500 in buyer closing costs and prepaids? And I said, well, that's the thing on the net proceeds that you agree to help the buyers out, but that's why they paid a little bit more for the house. And they said, no, we never agreed to that. I said, yeah, you signed that piece of paper. We would have never signed that piece of paper. You must have forged our signature on it. And we're not closing on the house. And I said, oh yeah, you are. You're going to sell your house and you're going to buy the new one, and I'm going to make sure of it. And matter of fact, I'm going to pay the $2,500. And if I had to, guys, I would have paid every single penny of my commission just to get those people out of my life. Because at this point in time, I'd spent 9 years with these people, and I think I walked away with $2,000 at this point for all the heartache they gave me. But I'm thinking back in the back of my mind, my mom saying, but we're owed something, and I want their referrals. Guys, I need you to know you are the sum total of the 5 people that are the closest to you, and the people that Marcy and Jean hung out with were the sum total of them. I didn't need any more Marcy's and Jeans. I didn't want their referrals. I did receive a referral from them, and I sent them to another agent. I was not going to work with those people. I need you to put your foot down and take a stand for yourself and the people that will treat you like trash, and find the people that actually want to work with you. I remember whenever I fired my very first client. It was right after I had left working with my mom. I had come home from an NAR convention. I actually think it was in New Orleans that year. And I came home. And I had this listing that we were just sitting on the market. And this is back in the days before CSS and showing time, and every Wednesday we would call our sellers and give them feedback from the previous week. No showings, overpriced, outdated, all of that stuff. So this particular client was my college economics professor. His name was Reza. And every Wednesday I would give Reza a call. We had no showings last week, your house is overpriced, and it's outdated. And Reza would go, no, Bobbi. The consumer spending levels are here, the consumer confidence levels are here, and that's why my house hasn't sold, Bobbi. And I would take it every single week, and finally I had enough. And I said, you know what, I don't think we are going to be able to work together, so I'm going to free you from our contract so you can go find the realtor that can help you sell in light of the consumer spending levels and consumer confidence index. And you know what? It's been 8 years since that happened. His house has never sold. He's been through about 10 different realtors, and I think he rented it a couple of different times, but actually just about a week ago it popped back up on my MLS as active again. He is still the owner of that property. If I were scarcity based like my mother was, I would still be dealing with him all of these years later. But I freed myself to go find someone who actually wanted to sell their home and not just give me the reasons why. I need you to do that. I need you to come from an abundance-based mindset. Next one. You are a business owner, act like one. My biggest frustration that I have with realtors sometimes, with us, is that we somehow think we're an employee of a broker. You're not. You are an independent contractor. You are a business owner. And as a part of being a business owner, you are a lead generator. Whether you like it or whether you don't, you're a lead generator. And so many times I have people tell me that they're not lead generators because they don't pick up the phone and call. But I can tell you right now, the number of leads you're getting in your business is directly proportional to whether your business is growing, staying steady, or declining. If you're not getting any leads, your business is declining. I had this conversation with one of my agents, and he came to become a realtor after being a CEO of a local hospital. And he's, Bobbi, I'm not a lead generator. You don't understand. That's just not who I am. That's not my being. And so I had a conversation with him. When you were the CEO of St. Luke's, how did you keep the doors open? Well, we did this, we did this, we did this. Exactly. Those were all ways of generating leads. I think we were sitting in a Starbucks at the time. How did Starbucks keep their doors open? Well, word of mouth. And they generated leads to then create word of mouth, which is a form of lead generation, guys. I need you to take an active interest in your business. I need you to know that you have to generate leads to keep your doors open. That's the only way to keep your doors open is by generating leads. But there's 110 different ways you can go do that. And I need you to find the 1 or 2 ways that works for you. Don't do 10 different ways. Remember the law of diminishing returns from yesterday? I need you to focus on the top 2 ways that you generate leads. Has anybody in this room ever read the Cash Flow Quadrant by Robert Kiyosaki? Okay, a few of you have. Those of you that haven't, I highly recommend that book. He also wrote Rich Dad, Poor Dad. Great book. I also like that too. But with a business owner, here's the point of it. If I can get a marker picked up. The cash flow quadrant is broken up into quadrants, 4 parts. Amazing. In the upper corner is the employee. This says you have a job. Down here is self-employed. It says you own a job. And this is where most realtors think that they fall. Up here is your business owner. This says I own systems and people work for me. And over here is the investor. This is where the money works for me. See, the problem is that until you bring leverage into your life, as a realtor, you are self-employed. 95% of Americans are either employed or self-employed. 5% of Americans are business owners or investors, but 95% of America's wealth is right over here. If you want to create a legacy for your family, if you want to have long-lasting wealth, you will figure out how to become a business owner, and you will figure out how to become an investor and have passive income coming into your life. You will break free from this pride that we have over being employed or being self-employed, because that's not where you create generational wealth over on that side. The other takeaway from this is that I need every single person in this room to create a profit and loss statement and to follow a budget. And if the money is not in your budget to go buy a thing, I need you to wait till the money is there. You guys will go to real estate conferences and see this new flashy pretty object, and you'll say, but it's only one transaction, we'll pay for that. You guys will one transaction yourself to death in this industry. We all rationalize it, just one. Stop doing that. Create a profit and loss. Your tax accountant will be so happy with you if you do have a profit and loss statement. Your life will be much easier. And I need you to have a budget, and I need you to follow that budget. Next one, face your fears. Everything you want is on the other side of fear. Fear can stand for two things: forget everything and run, or face everything and rise. Growth happens outside your comfort zone. I need you to get comfortable being uncomfortable. Typically, as a people, we tend to run away from pain more than we'll run towards pleasure. We tell ourselves, I'm not worthy of getting that amazing thing, and so I would just rather run away from the pain and the hard things that are happening to me. But what you don't understand is that everything you've ever wanted is typically on the other side of fear, and you have to get past that. And for all of the things that I have said today about the things my mom didn't necessarily do right in her life, my mom was one of the most fearless people I ever met. She used to go cliff diving, and as a result of that, she crushed her tailbone and had to have multiple surgeries. But that didn't stop her, because then she became a bodybuilder. And she won Miss Missouri in 1986 for bodybuilding. She had no business getting into real estate. She didn't have a sphere. And yet she didn't let any fear of she might fail stop her. But so many times in our lives and in our worlds and everything like that, we let this fear get into the way for how other people will view us, how other people look at us. And we take a lot of pride in being an entrepreneur and acting in entrepreneurial ways. What we have to start doing is acting in purposeful ways. An entrepreneur, they do what comes naturally to them. How many people do you know in your world? They're serial entrepreneurs. They have a great idea, it's amazing, and they set out to do it. 6 months later, you talk to them and they've got the next great idea. Being an entrepreneur isn't necessarily a great thing, because what they'll typically do is hit a ceiling and go back down. So when you act in entrepreneurial ways, you'll be amazing, amazing, amazing. You'll hit that ceiling because you're doing what acts naturally. And then you come down here and you're disappointed. And then you hit resignation, like, I'll never be anything other than this. Ooh, but then you see a new idea and you hit greener pastures. You hit that again. And you keep redoing the cycle. However, if you push through this part where it's really, really hard, you get some training, it's coaching and consulting, someone to help you through that, you get up here. And then what you have is a new ceiling. But the best part of this is not that there's a new ceiling that you're going to break through. It's that you have a new floor. You never go back to being that person once you break through that moment. You see, I had a situation whenever I was running my office of 500 agents, where in the first 90 days, every single day I was about an hour away. Every single day on the drive in, I prepared my speech to my boss of how I was going to quit this job. It was horrible. And then I would get to the office, I would put my head down, I would do the work that I needed to do, and then the drive home, I was like, today wasn't so bad. And then I'd wake up the next morning and go, I'm going to quit. It's bad. I am so thankful I stuck out that first 90 days, and that was my husband's promise. He said, you just have to stick out 90 days. Because during that time, I became a completely new person. I will never go back to the person I was before that. And I have since broken through a couple other plateaus since then, and I will never go back down here. But it sucks. When you're in that moment, when you want to quit every single second, I need you to know that you're on the verge of something great, and it's right there on the other side. You just got to wait for it to happen. If it were really easy and fun, everybody would be doing it. Everybody would be breaking through all the time. You got to fight for your right to party. No, you got to fight for your right for what's on the other side. Sorry, I had a Travis Kelce moment. It's okay. You got to keep fighting. You got to go to the other side. And I need you to believe in yourself and know that there is greatness on that other side. My mom, she wasn't scared. She knew she had to fight and keep clawing. Next one. don't judge your insides by someone else's outsides. Because quite frankly, what's going on in their outside tells you nothing that's going on in their inside world. Yet we are really good about speaking down to ourselves about how we are nothing like that person and how their life's so much easier and their life's so much better. And Facebook has not made this any better. Facebook has one of two people on it typically. Either everything's amazing in their Pinterest life and they are absolutely perfect, or there are victims that we talked about yesterday and everything's drama and nothing will ever go right. If you're one of those two people, stop it. I still love you, but please stop. See, the problem whenever we judge your insides by someone else's outsides is that we don't see this. It's the iceberg illusion. You remember this is a lot like Pareto's principle as well, that graphic I had for that. You just see the 20%. You just see the success that they have. You don't see the other 80% that's below the water. You don't see their persistence. You don't see the failures they've gone through. You don't see the sacrifices they've made. You don't see their disappointments, their discipline, and especially their hard work and dedication. It's so easy to look back at other realtors and just go, business just shows up in their lap. I guarantee you there's things they've done to make that happen. Business doesn't show up. You have to go out and you have to work for it. Comparison is the thief of joy. Stop comparing yourself to other people. You are your own person. You are amazing. You are a child of God and you are amazing and talented, and I need you to find your talents and go do that and stop worrying about everybody else. Next one. I know this is trite and we say it all the time, but the struggle is real, y'all. It really, really is. And I need us to become more vulnerable and more transparent as a people. I need you to stop worrying about other people judging you, because typically we are too focused on ourselves to ever worry about judging anybody else. But we spend so much time worrying about what other people think. I believe that we have a duty and an obligation to come together as a people. And that whenever we share our own struggles, when we share the things that have been going on in our lives, we typically are able to connect with other people because they have something going on in their lives too. Remember the last slide? The 80% down below the water, they have that going on. Yet they're looking at us and just seeing the 20% above the water thinking our lives are perfect. You know, my mom's story was very reminiscent of that of Kate Spade, of Robin Williams, of Anthony Bourdain. Though I think you could see the demons in Anthony Bourdain's life if you followed his career at all. But Robin Williams, when Robin Williams took his life, everybody said, he was so happy. He was a comedian. Yeah, he hid that through his pain. My mom, when I got that phone call, sadly I knew I would get that phone call someday. I knew that was going to be a part of my mom's history someday. I hoped it would never happen. And at the time she was in her life, I really didn't expect it to happen then. But I had seen that pop up throughout her life. Unfortunately, I was the only one that had seen the other side of her. When everything happened and I got the call and I went out to the home and I'm talking to the coroners and I was like, can you do, when you're part of the autopsy, can you tell me if she was on her antidepressant meds? And she had a husband of 2 years, and he said, antidepressant meds? What are you talking about? And he had no idea. They had his and hers bathrooms. And so we go into her bathroom, and we pull out 2 of the gallon-sized Ziploc bags full of antidepressant meds. She had over 75 different prescriptions. Even her own husband of 2 years had no idea this is what was going on in her life. When all of this went down, there were several people in the community that called the local FBI agent accusing my stepfather of murder because there was no way Nancy could ever do this to herself. Yeah. But because she was never vulnerable, because she was never transparent, because she was so scared that if she ever shared how she truly felt, no one would want to work with her, she just let it eat her alive. When I truly believe that if she'd shared the person she truly was, she would have had more business than she ever knew what to do with, because people would have connected with her on a human level. I need you to communicate and connect with other people. And the reason I need you to do that is because it takes a village. Now, it doesn't just take a village to raise a child. It takes a village to raise a human being. And I believe that we all have 2 parts to our village. There's the people that are a part of our village, and there's the village that we're a part of for someone else. So I have 2 villages. The first one is I'm a part of a closed Facebook mastermind group. with about 50 top agents from across the country. I love these people like they're my brothers and my sisters. And sometimes I wonder why they allow me to stay in the group, because I'm just Bobbi, it's fine. And when I was going through my struggles deciding whether I stayed in my role running my office or not, for about 6 different weeks I typed up a post to put in there, just lining out what I was going through mentally and where I was at, and I would delete it every single time. Because I was scared those people were going to judge me. I was scared they were going to say, Bobbi, what right do you have being in our community? I was scared of going backwards and someone going, you just wasted. What are you doing? You're useless. And finally I'd had enough, and I needed a place to share. I didn't have anyone to talk to about this. I didn't have any of my normal life. My husband didn't understand any of this. And so I finally put the post out there. And what I discovered was one of the most amazing things that had ever happened. Every single person took time to write something back to me. Some had answers, some did not. But every single person expressed how important I was to them. And to this day, about once a week, someone in that group will reach out and say, hey Bobbi, I love you. When's the last time you just picked up your phone and randomly texted a friend, a family member, anyone, and just said, I love you? There's nothing else to the conversation. There's no ulterior motive. We don't tell the people in our village that we love them enough. We just assume that they know. And they do know that you love them. But how good does it feel when someone tells you they love you? Do that to someone else. Reach out to them and tell them. Remind them of how important they are in your life. The second part of the village is whose village you're a part of. So I'm a part of another Facebook group that actually started when I was pregnant with my son, and we met on a website called The Bump. For any ladies in the room, you get married on the nod and you do your babies on the bump. And we were in this birth month message board with other people that were due within the same month of having our baby. We eventually moved over to a Facebook group, and there's about 150 of us from all across the country that all had children within about a 45-day time frame with each other. Now what's really nice is that when my child's doing something really strange, like sticking peas up their nose, I can ask other moms, hey, is your kid doing this? Yeah, that's totally normal, Bobbi. Okay, great, I don't have to worry about it. And it's kind of nice.
All been there.
Yeah, we've all been there, I know. Now they're a little bit different things nowadays, but that's fine. Anyway, so one of the moms in this group, her name is Casey. And one of the little girls that was a part of this group from day one, her name was Zoe. And about 4 years ago, Zoe was diagnosed with a pediatric brain cancer called DIPG. Now, if you've never heard of DIPG, there's a 0% survival rate for this cancer. They get $500 a year in government funding, and about 700 children are diagnosed every single year with this. The typical survival rate for DIPG is 9 to 11 months. There's less than a 1% survival rate for anything over 2 years, and there are no known survivors at this time. So little Zoe was diagnosed about 4 years ago, and we rallied around Casey and Zoe as a part of her village, because Casey didn't know what to do. Zoe was one of ours. We were 150 aunts to little Zoe. So we did the one thing that we could do, and we raised a lot of money. And through that, we were able to send little Zoe over to Germany and do some experimental trials. We were able to send them to Mexico and do some experimental trials. And a result of that, we were able to extend little Zoe's life. She lived 1 day short of her 2-year diagnosis. She was almost the 1%. And we always kept thinking she would bounce back. But whenever the funeral for Zoe happened, an amazing thing was there. And that of the 150 moms, 120 of us were able to go to Rochester, New York and be at that funeral and love on Casey and be there for her. So I need you to think about who's in your village and whose village are you a part of? Who are you helping? My mom didn't have a village. She just kept everything to herself. She thought that's how she had to do everything. And I truly believe had she had a village, she would still be here with us today. My next point, take time for those who matter most. I know you know this, but sometimes you need to be reminded of this. This is your family. These are your friends. And most importantly, this is yourself. Because you matter. You truly, truly do. And then I need you to fire those people in your life who do not matter and do not bring you joy back. So we talked yesterday about calendaring and vacations, calendaring and time for your family. It's not about prioritizing your schedule. It's about scheduling your priorities. I need you to take your calendar and put your priorities on it, and then you let nothing get in the way of that, no matter what. Because real estate will always be there. And what I need is for when someone asks for one of your time blocks, I need you to say, I'm already booked at that time. How about this time or that time? What I don't want you saying is, I can't meet with you because I have to go to Alex's soccer game. Because there are certain people in your world that will not respect that, and they will make you feel guilty about going to your child's soccer game. And then the moment that you allow that appointment to take precedent over your child's soccer game or whatever it is, you just taught them how to treat you, and now every single time you have another family obligation, you just taught them, I'll give up my family for you every single time. I need you to fiercely protect your schedule, and especially your schedule for your children and your families, your cats, whoever you have in your world. Hey, we have cat ladies. I love it. Schedule time with your families. And the other thing is those people that come up on your caller ID and you immediately go, oh. I need you to let them go to voicemail. Do it. You'll feel so much better for having done it. But stop it. I have one client right now. His name's Richie. And every time my phone rings, if I make that face, my son will go, hey mom, is that Richie? Every single time. Now I was in the middle of a transaction with him. We were already under contract when it started getting really, really bad. And now he wants to buy some more property, and I've handed him off to someone else because I needed to get rid of him because he was forcing me to take time away from those who mattered the most to me. Again, I can find more clients every day. I can't find more time with my family. My next point. This is one of my favorite stories to tell. If you can fix a problem with money, it's not really a problem. I need you to understand that. Money issues is one of the biggest problems we have in marriages. You all are in real estate. You can go make money if you want to. We have a beautiful opportunity to do that. One of the ways I've always been scarcity-based in my life is around money. And I learned this from my mom. My mom was that person that would reuse always the gift bags. You always reuse those, but we'd even reuse wrapping paper. If you did it just right, when you took it off, you could reuse wrapping paper. My mom would buy always save toilet paper because it's always save. We didn't have to buy that. We weren't at that place in our life where that's what we had to buy, yet she was so scarcity based around money, and there may never be any more coming in, that she didn't ever enjoy anything in life. And then one day, in May of 2006, the IRS showed up at my doorstep. My mother-in-law called me. She said, the IRS is here. They have badges. I was like, why? She says, well, you owe some money on back taxes. No, I don't owe any money on back taxes. I have an accountant. We've always paid all of our taxes, paid them on time. Well, what we discovered was 5 years prior, my brother-in-law, my husband's brother, had a landscaping business, and he got in trouble with the IRS. And he was required to take the business out of his name. What we didn't know is he put that business into my husband's name. And then he didn't pay trust fund taxes for 2 years. Now, you know how you see the commercials on TV, if you owe $80,000 in taxes, give us a call, you pay $8,000 and get out of it? Trust fund taxes, you have to pay 100%. And so I discovered I owed $68,000 within 30 days, where they were freezing all of my assets, and they were going to go digging through my personal records. Now, like I said, I've always hired an accountant. I've always paid all of my taxes. However, I've never known an audit to go well for any realtor ever in their lives, and I did not want that. We had a few sleepless nights. I had a few nights where I had a voodoo doll stabbing my brother-in-law, but that's beside the point. And then I discovered that I could pull money out of my son's college fund, and it cost me $93,000 to come up with $68,000. But what I discovered in that moment was it's just money. I can always go make more. This wasn't truly a problem. That doesn't mean I wasn't stressed out. That doesn't mean I didn't cry. But in the grand scheme of things in my life, this was not a problem. I could fix this problem just with money. I couldn't bring my mom back from the dead. I couldn't bring little Zoe back from the dead. I couldn't even fix her cancer with money. The person whose job I took over, they got into jail. I couldn't fix their problem with money either. This was just coming up with $93,000 in 30 days. It's an issue, but it was not a problem. And then 30 days later, my basement flooded. And I had to come up with another $25,000 basically overnight because we discovered they never installed drain tiles around our house. Again, super stressed out, but it wasn't a real problem in my life. And I'm going to add on to this part of the story because this happened about a year ago now, is I get a call from my husband and he's like, the IRS was back. And I'm like, what? And he's angry. Like, I've never heard my husband as angry as he was in that moment. He's like, I'm going to kill my brother. Okay, killing your brother will send you to jail. That does not do me any good. Oh, I'm going to go beat him. Again, going to jail does me no good. And he's just angry, and I've never, ever heard him this angry. But he can't get his brother on the phone. He won't answer text. He knows that they were coming out to our house, and he just wasn't answering. And that's why my husband's so mad. So I realized I need to go home and try to calm him down. I called my mother-in-law. You need to know there may be a murder later today. I'm not really sure, but I need you to be aware of what's going on. And I get about 5 minutes away from my house, and my Ring doorbell goes off. So I pull it up. What I discover is I have some police officers outside my house. Oh, this is fun. So I pull up to my house, and I discover I have 4 police cars. I've got 4 actual police officers. And I have 4 officers with the Treasury Department. Everyone's got bulletproof vests on. Everyone's got guns on their hips. And what I discover is that my husband got really angry when the IRS agent came to our house. Not angry at her, but angry at his brother who wasn't answering his phone. And apparently he was hitting our kitchen table going, F, 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 because my brother-in-law wouldn't answer the phone. She got scared and she left our home. I would have left the home too. So now what I have is all of these police officers asking me if I'm scared to go in my own home, asking me if I'm scared of my own husband, asking me if I have people hiding up in my attic. No, and I'm freaking out now because all the neighbors are outside looking at us, figuring out what's going on with those crazy people. My husband gets home, he sits down at the table, and he starts having a conversation with the Treasury Department agents. And they ask him if he has any access to any guns. No. He was wearing a Browning cap, and they said, well, that's a hat that hunters wear. That's a hunting brand. You're telling us you don't hunt? Yeah, I go hunting. Well, where do you get your guns? Well, my father has some guns. Well, so you do have access to guns. Well, no, they're locked in a cabinet 30 minutes away from here, whatever. So then they started asking him about any weapons we have in the house. Then they started asking him about his knowledge of any bomb-making skills that he has, and they search our computer history. And then they asked what his intent to harm the IRS agent was. And that's when my husband realized what had happened. Because at this point, he still didn't know what was going on. And then eventually what we found out is we owed another $40,000 in 30 days. It's fine. Listen, my brother-in-law's not getting any Christmas presents from me for like a long time. But I own a really awesome landscape and snow removal company now, so hey, if you need some in Kansas City, I got you. But again, that's not really a problem. I lived through it. I'm still here to talk about it. It sucked. I still am angry to this day. I'm most angry about the situation my husband was put into with the police officers and the special agents with the Treasury Department. We should have never been put in that position. But we were able to fix it and make it go away with money. I need you to know to not get stressed over money. That there's always an answer, there's always a way. Travel expands you. I need you to be able to put yourself in opportunities to be in the right place at the right time to expand your world and those around you. I need you to leave your state. I need you to leave your country. I need you to go see the beautiful world that we have before us. You see, I told you that my mom was a forklift driver in a factory. The same time she was a forklift driver in the factory, my dad and my stepmom all worked in that same factory. And so they often, whenever they were switching out custody with me, they would take me into the break room and I would switch me off in between custody. And because of that, they had a factory worker mentality. They would check in, they would check out, go home, rinse, repeat the next day. They weren't the kind of people to travel. And then whenever my mom became a successful realtor, she didn't have time to take off to go travel and see the world. And I begged and begged and begged to go on vacations. And we eventually went to like Disneyland once. It was amazing and I loved every moment of it. But we weren't those people as they told me. And so I had always craved traveling. And I had this amazing experience when I was a junior in college and I got to live in Mexico for 12 weeks. And I can pretty much tell you I would not be standing before you today had I not gone on that trip. My life was forever changed by being put in a situation where I didn't know what was going on around me and I had to figure it out. And one of my very favorite memories from going on that trip was one day we asked our teacher, Professor, can we please take a field trip to this town called Jojutla? And so he allowed like 6 of us to go on this thing. Well, if you ever look at a map, Jojutla is dead center in Mexico in the middle of a desert. There is nothing going on around it. So why did we want to go to Jojutla? They had an amazing water park there in the middle of a desert. Now the way that we got to Jojutla though was interesting because we went to the local bus station and we got on a bus and they took us to this other small town where we got on a school bus and then they took us into the town of Jojutla, but then we had to get in the back of our farmer's truck to go out to the water park. There were no taxis, there was none of that. And I just remember thinking in that moment, A, I might die. B, my life is going to be forever changed because of this moment. I put myself out there. I faced my fears. I realized all the goodness that is in this world by going and seeing things that so many people will never see and be a part of. Travel truly expands who you are, expand your mind. Your health is your most valuable asset. If you don't have your health, what else is there? A part of your health, super big part of your health, is your mental health. My mom ignored her mental health. She ignored her physical health. My mom was all of 5'4", 110 pounds soaking wet, yet she would wait until 6 o'clock to eat for the first time in the day, and then she'd eat a triple cheeseburger, a whole bunch of fries, always a Diet Coke, I don't know why, and then a Snickers. I don't understand the Diet Coke sauce, that's the other, but it's fine. She ignored her physical health, and as a result, she struggled horribly with migraines. She spent a lot of time in the Diamond Headache Clinic and other places, and they just could never figure out the source for migraines and everything that was going on. But she didn't take care of her body. Your body is a temple. Your health is a part of your wealth. If you don't have your health, you can't go physically do the things you need to do in your life. But you also have to take care of your mental health. And I'm a huge proponent of journaling and getting that out. I personally like to journal at the end of the day. Some people like to journal first thing in the morning. Whatever your thing is, but I need you to take care of your mental health because that is just as important as everything else in your world. If you're not growing, well, if a plant's not growing, what's happening to it? It's dying. If you're not growing as a human being, you are dying on some level. I need you to keep pushing forward. I need you to keep learning new things. In yesterday's class, I presented you with the growth plan, the thing that's 3 bullet points for every single month. There's a reason I put that into that class. There's a reason I bring it up here. When you do that, you're committing yourself to continually growing every single month. Whether that's reading a book, learning a new skill, taking a family vacation. Those are all growth-related items, and I need you to take time for it. So while we're talking about growth-related things, if you were in yesterday's class, you know that I love to give books for people to read. I have a KCRAR podcast, and I have Bobbi's book bit every single week. I love to read books because I think that's one of the greatest ways that I can grow. As real estate individuals, probably the most impactful book that I have ever read in regards to real estate and the industry we work in is a book called The Color of Law by Richard Rothstein. And it's a book about how segregation in this country is de jure, not de facto. It's simply a product of our government and federal laws that we have created. New Orleans was a huge, horrible part of this. Kansas City was a huge, horrible part of this. We still have on some of our deeds in Missouri our restrictions that people of color cannot live in those subdivisions. As recently as 1968, it was against NAR, the National Association, it was against our code of ethics to work with people of color. Guys, that was not that long ago. As recently as 2008, when all the mortgage fraud was taking place, it was historically neighborhoods of color that was being gone after for mortgage fraud. I need you to understand what has gone on in this country and what continues to go on in this country. And I'm not taking a government stance right now. I'm just saying you have to understand where we've come from to understand where we are today. Some of our government laws have created the inequality that remains in existence to this day. So I highly recommend Color of Law by Richard Rothstein, one of the most amazing reads I have ever had. I need you to know it's not all about you. It's not. We want it to be, but it's not. Everybody else is thinking it's all about them. I need you to come from a place of cooperation versus coming from a place of competition. My mom, we had our best fights and we had our great moments too. But my mom was one of those people that when I had just had the best day ever, she could beat me every time. She had the better day than me. I'll tell you this, and this happened. Or when I had the worst day and I just needed a hug, she had an even worse day. Everything was always a competition. And you all know those people that when you go out and you make your post on Facebook or you're telling a story in person, they always relate it back to themselves. Well, when this happened to me, stop that, okay? It's not all about you. Listen to the other person, see how you can help them, but don't always just turn it back on you every single second. This is my last one. I need you to never, ever take anyone or anything for granted. Like I mentioned earlier, I always knew that my mom's story would end the way that it did. I didn't want it to, but it did. I told you the day that everything happened, I was at a meeting. She didn't show up to that meeting. Wasn't really a surprise. But what I didn't tell you is what happened before that. You see, that was my very first day back in my office from maternity leave. I'd had my son 4 months earlier. It was February 4th, 2013. And I had just gotten into the office that morning and I was starting to lay out what I was going to do to get my business back on track because I hadn't done anything for 4 months. And I get a text from my mom. It says, "Hey, when can I see Alex?" It's my little boy. And what you don't know is the last time she had seen him was Christmas Eve. It was now a month and a half later. And I'd been begging her to come see him. It's January, things are slow. Come see Alex, come see Alex. She was always too busy. She always had this going on. She could never make time to come see him. And now, it's my first day back in the office. I'm trying to get my business back on track. And now she wants to interrupt on my day to come see my son? Are you kidding me? So what do I do when I read the text? I look at it and I throw my phone down and I say, "F you, lady." Now, I didn't really type that out to her because I'm a better person than that. But I actually physically said that out loud in my office. Someone was walking by and they go, "What's wrong?" And I told them that. Now, I responded back to my mom, "Sure, I'd love for you to come see Alex anytime. You tell me when and I will make that happen." Well, what happened a couple hours later? I got that phone call. And now I have to forever live with knowing my last visceral reaction to my mom was one of anger and hatred. My mom and I didn't always have the best relationship, but we didn't have the worst relationship. And if I could go back in time and just hug my mom one more time and tell her how loved she is and how amazing she is, I would. Yet my last reaction to my mom was, "F you, lady." So I need you to know that you never know what your last words are going to be to someone, and you need to make sure they're one of love and come from a true place in your heart. That's all I have for you guys today. Thank you for your time and attention. I'm here for you anytime.
town hall will be at 2:15 back in Post Oak 1, 2, and 3. So you've got about 20 minutes. So take your time. We'll see you there. Great job. Great job.
Richard Rose.